Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this demo of Deckible. I'm going to hand over to Nick Kellett in a minute. He's the inventor of Deckible. And just to give you some idea of Nick's background, Nick invents for a living. And to give you some idea of the things that he has invented in the past, he created a set analysis product, which he sold to Business Objects and is now SAP, if anybody recognises that. The game that he showed us earlier, which won't appear here because it's happened before the intro, is called Gift Wrap, and I'm sure you can push that past the camera again a little bit later on. Yeah. Nick, 100k units of that sold, and winner of the Spiel des Jahres, which I'm sure we're all as games designers extremely jealous of. And most importantly, for the purposes of this afternoon, he is the creator of Deckible. So I'm going to hand over to Nick with no further ado, so he can introduce Deckible to you.
Hi, Gerardo's here. Awesome. All right, I'm going to just jump in and start sharing my slides, but and oh yeah, I've got a lot. Right. Okay. Okay, I'm just. All right. So yeah, I'm Nick Kellett, founder of Deckible, and yeah, I'll go through my background a bit later as when it comes to the kind of towards the end of it. I just want to dive straight into what is Deckible, and I really, for those that are not aware, and there's actually quite a lot of people that are not aware of it, is that the whole card deck space has gone nuts in the last few years for various reasons, and like this is how we see the card deck space. Like there are decks for everything. And in each of these categories, some of these categories have got thousands of decks in. I mean, like Tarot and Oracle, there are literally probably, 5,000 Tarot Oracle decks. I have no idea, it's pretty impossible to count them, but there's all of these categories are the same mechanism, a printed card deck that you can play games with, that you can teach with, that, there's just so many things you can do with card decks, and cards are fun because they get messy with them. You shuffle them, you play on the surface, you can organize them into groups, you can prioritize them, you can just create all sorts of meaning and symbolism through the use of those cards and the combinations of cards. It's a kind of ideation randomizer generator. So there's many types of card decks, and what struck me as a cardboard person, as a board gamer, my background is in board gaming, but I'm also a technologist, and I was like, why isn't there one deck? Why isn't there one app to go to load all of these decks and have these experiences? And I'll cover off why I think that's not happened a bit later, but for now, this is what excited me when I sat down and started really thinking about Deckible, because Deckible is an idea that's been 3 years in the making in my mind. I spent 3 years meandering through these different ideas, and then I landed on just focus on decks, because really part of this is the learning experience. It's how do we consume content, how do we engage, how do we participate, how do we teach, learn, how do we motivate, inspire. Card decks are an integral part of that in the whole mindfulness movement as well. So yeah, that's basically how I see the deck market. And I'm a little deck obsessed, fair to say. I own a lot of decks. This is a kind of photo collage of some of my decks by category. And that's even just a sad fraction of my deck collection, but just obsessively wanting to learn and understand the whole space. It's just interesting to me. And what I've discovered about decks fascinates me is that during my research, I've discovered there are at least 20 different people around the world who are selling courses on how to create decks. So there's like rocket fuel. It's a very meta kind of experience. There's rocket fuel to fuel people creating new decks. And some of that is for sure COVID, because people have been at home with some people with no work and creative design skills on the computer, and then they've created their deck, right? But there's just lots of reasons why that is. And so kind of why now is this the case? Well, I mean, it seems obvious to me that, music has been digitized and and is now, you know, Spotify, iTunes, whatever. Books have been digitized as Kindle and as Audible. Why have decks not been done? And I think for me, it feels that there are lots of existing card deck apps, but I broadly think, without being specific or naming names, that they suck. And they suck because they're soulless. They're not tactile. They don't give you that joyous feeling of messiness that a card deck on a table surface gives you. They're not social. They're also not multi-deck. So they're not a marketplace for all the decks that exist, because there are a lot of apps. A lot of people have got, oh, here's my deck, I'll build this app. And they create a different experience. Like, how successful would Spotify be if you had to download a different app for every album, right? That would kind of defeat the purpose of Spotify. And another thing is these decks have not been experiential. Literally flip up a card on the screen and it's there and you can't touch it. The most exciting thing they offer is to flip it over. And that's about it. And we've basically, with Deckible, created this integrated experience that's mindful, reflective, journaling, social, etc. Right? As to why the deck category is exploding, tarot is on trend. It's a very young thing. So that's hot. I guess TikTok's a big fueler for that. There's a lot of people who are promoting their readings. There's a lot of tarot readers. Mindfulness has exploded. The pandemic has driven mindfulness and also driven creatives to produce more decks. Coaching is on the rise for sure, right? So there's a lot of coaching decks. Kickstarter is a big thing because that's where I find a lot of the decks that I think are interesting. And then print platforms. It's become super easy for a lot of people to create and print things. Like literally you can go to Canva and print your business card straight from Canva, or you could print your deck straight from Canva, right? It'd be really easy. And there's many other print platforms. So that's what's some of the rocket fuel that's driving this. And all the meanwhile, no one has unified this whole market into one, right? So these are some of the people that were already on Deckible, and Deckible isn't launched yet, but we basically reached out to a lot of people and loaded their decks onto this platform. There are some amazing decks here. I just get goosebumps when I see these things loaded up because they're so beautiful, so creative, so different. They are the full spectrum. You know, we've got, we even have, who's heard of Marshall McLuhan here? Show of hands. Marshall McLuhan made an amazing deck back in I forget, it was 69, 72, 73, something like that, called the Digital Early Warning Deck. And it was actually the forerunner to Oblique Strategies. That was the forerunner to many other things. And we actually have the exclusive rights to Marshall McLuhan's deck through the McLuhan estate. It's very exciting. And all of these can be yours on the phone. And then you can do mashups, right? Because the whole essence of Deckible is you can combine cards from different decks and create fun experiences. So and I kind of jokingly call this Tinder for decks, right? Because you can literally, not today, I'm not choosing you. You can pick the deck you're interested in, right? And there's decks for like affirmations. Beautiful Trouble is an amazing deck that literally is crowdsourced from around the world for people who've actually used it to overcome, they've had life experiences to overcome challenging regimes. And all of that have been assembled into one deck. So if you have a challenging regime to overcome around the world, you can refer to this deck and use the techniques and strategies from experts. It's very cool. There's lots of business coaching decks. Sneakerfish is one of those examples. Mindfulness decks, oracle decks, coaching decks, strengths, values, and feelings is another big category for decks in the app. It's just a lot of it, right? And so playfully, you know, as a marketing guy, which I'm kind of both an inventor and a kind of strategizer and marketeer, I'm kind of playing with some metaphors here that, I mean, who remembers the original tagline for the iPod? Right, there's 1,000 songs in your pocket, and then they boosted it later to 10,000 songs in your pocket because the iPod got bigger, and now the iPod's gone away mostly because we all just use our phone. But it was a metaphoric moment because you think to yourself, how can I fit 1,000 songs in my pocket, right? It was, because you imagine, well, how many albums is that? How many cassettes? I couldn't do it, right? And I think that's the same thing with decks, because one of the biggest drivers for this that I think of is decks are valuable. Decks are kind of bulky. They're very precious. They're expensive. They're hard to get hold of. Some of them are out of stock and rare. I don't want to take my decks everywhere, but I want my decks with me at all times. So how do I solve that conundrum, right? So how could you fit 100 decks in your pocket? Well, pretty easily with Deckible, right? That's the idea. And so cool metaphor. And funny, for the funniest thing to me is the phone is deck sized, right? I kind of jokingly say this is the device, this is the app the phone was waiting for, right? It was built to be this size, but there is, to this point, everything we consume on our phone is consumptive. I scroll, I flick, I move. You don't do that with card decks. You get involved, you get messy, you pinch, zoom, scroll, move, organize, right? And I couldn't resist the Got Deck campaign. Who remembers the Got Deck campaign? Probably maybe not so many people, but Got Deck was basically
Got
used
milk.
to be Got
Yeah.
Milk, right? Sorry, Got Milk campaign. Yeah, it was very famous. It got plagiarized massively as kind of early meme movement. It was just this famous, they were trying to sell the benefits of milk, and then they realized that it wasn't the benefits of milk. You just needed milk when you needed it. And the Got Milk campaign was the most simple way of doing it. And then the sort of third of this trilogy of metaphors is Audible for decks is about the best parallel. Like we all know, like I personally listen to a lot of books. I have 600 books on Audible. I thought I was obsessive, but turns out I have friends that have 3,000 Kindles on their tablet or their phone. So it's not unusual to have a large number of content. And I did a survey of 500 people in the Oracle Tarot space, and the average tarot person owns 10 decks. And I kind of asked myself, why is that? What's so different? And I thought, well, if people had this motivation that was fun and easy and engaging, deck usage could be more broad across the population, because Oracle is a subset. I think tarot is probably 10% of the population who are into it. I don't have a number for that, but that's just a rough guess. There's a lot of people that kind of don't participate, but it's definitely becoming trendier, I think, with the young generation. But my feeling is, if we can democratize decks, more people will own more decks, because they'll realize there is a deck marketplace, as opposed to there's all these different types of decks that I didn't really think were the same thing, right? So let's have a look at the Deckible experience, right? So Deckible is an Android iOS app, and the app is free in the App Store. It will be when we launch at the end of May. And basically then you buy the decks you want in the app, just like Audible, right? And so the thing about Deckible is it starts with a visual timeline, right? So here's my timeline of, on any given day, I can have as many experiences as I want with as many different decks as I want. I can scroll up and down, and it shows me a visual reminder of every card I touched on each day. And I can click on any of those stacks of cards and open it up. And then I can arrange the cards and get messy with the cards. And you'll see that, because I'm going to go into a full demo later on. But the timeline is a really cool place to start, because it's like a done list. It's a visual reminder of everything you've done. And you can journal on every single one of those experiences if you want. So it's like blending and pulling together your meditation, your journal reflection, the readings you might do, any gameplay you might play, right? And journaling is an integral part of it. So if I journal, I can just type, right? Literally with my phone, I can type away, right? Journaling's thoughtful, right? It definitely is, and reflecting on what you're doing is important. But if you ever talk to your phone, it's so much more fun. And this is, you can see the sound base. This is it's much easier to just talk to your phone, and it's really that effortless to journal, right? So saved away forever, those thoughts and reflections, right? And then we can meditate on any given card. So here's just a really simple 3-second meditation. the bong kicks in, it counts down, and it ends, right? And then it's saved away my card to my timeline. And if I want to, I can jump back in there and meditate, jump back and journal on that experience. So what we've built is this, it's using the card deck metaphor. You can have as many cards from as many decks as many times as you want, but we've wrapped it around this visual timeline that lets you journal and meditate. So it's got purpose to it. And if you want to, you can save away any set of cards you've created to make your own custom deck. So it's very simple. And you can literally use those then to remind yourself, or maybe I've decided, maybe I've got a values deck. What does Nick value? And Nick could go through the deck of cards and pick the cards that his true values and save those away, right? And then I can check in with myself. How did today go? Did I live true to my values? Yes, I did, right? So you can make curated decks of just the favorite cards, just like you can on Spotify, right? You can make your favorite song lists, you can make your favorite deck list here. And then basically we have a marketplace where you can go buy each deck. And when you buy the deck, the creator of the deck sets the price. And what happens is that if you buy it on your Android phone, your card will get charged by Google. And if you buy it on your iOS phone, it's basically an in-app purchase. It comes from the App Store. Google and Apple take their, typically their 15% off the top of that. And then we do a 50-50 revenue share with the creators of each deck, right? So we're really empowering artists to make a living digitally, because when you think about print, by the time you've printed a deck, managed the stock, managed faults, replacement, dings, dents, by the time you visited the post office, had a pseudo affair with the guy from DHL because you see him that often, like your shipping stuff, it's very manual. All of that costs a lot of money and time. We love print, but we think we can help all of those people sell more printed decks by offering a digital download, so I can buy it wherever I am in the world and not have to pay for shipping straight away until I've actually discovered the deck is awesome. I really want to, I really want to own this deck, and I'm going to buy it now. And there's a buy now button to buy the physical deck inside the app. And then another two core experiences are shuffling. So I can just shuffle any deck at any point, and it's a very visual experience. And you can shuffle as many times as you want. And we can also flip. Now, the funny thing to me about card decks is paper has this physical limit. It's two-sided, and there's nothing, not even Elon Musk can turn a piece of paper into a three-sided device, right? But digitally, we don't have that limit. We can flip the cards, and we can have as many sides as we want, and every card can have a different number of sides if I want to. Because flipping is fun, because it means I can have a concertina of information behind each card if I want to, right? And then I'll show you the choosing cards in a bit. But the other thing that's fun about a digital app of decks is we can include media. Like, I don't have to read everything. I can have someone read it to me. This, I'm just going to play you a little audio track now, which is, I'll just play it.
Card so I'll start with this. 2. A couple of years.
Just a minute. Come back again. Okay.
Card number 2. Om Mani Padme Hum. May the jewel of the lotus shine forth this light of love and compassion to unite all existence as one.
Okay. So that's just a short clip, but this is a physical card deck that this lady has sold for years, a printed card deck where you have to read the chant. She now has taken it digital where you can read the chant, but you can also listen to it, right? And I think that adds a dimension. So I could buy a deck from a creator, and the creator could tell me a story behind each card, right? And that to me is fascinating. I think people love to connect with the artists that they love, and this is a great way of doing that. And the other cool thing is, we can play video in the app. So
So I'll start with this. A couple of years ago, an event planner called me because I was going to do a speaking event, and she called and she said, I'm really struggling with how to.
So there's just an abstract of one of Brené Brown's TED Talks, right? TED Talks are great, videos are great, but I can actually have that and then pull out quotes from that as cards in the deck. So, but making the deck multimedia is just a transformative experience. So decks can have multiple sides and can have audio and video. So it's very simple. The other cool thing about is what we've done with Deckible is made it super shareable. So you can choose any set of cards any which way you want. So here I've got 2 cards from the Beautiful Trouble deck, and I can choose to share that. I can then search for a friend from my phone book on my phone, and it just sends them that. And then they receive it on their Deckible in their inbox, and it's kind of glows until that set of cards is opened up and you see what that person sent you, right? So it's nice and simple, but fun and deeply integrated. And sharing is personal, right? So you can share with and without the journal entry, right? Because you wouldn't want to maybe share all your hearts and feelings with every person. You might want to just share the cards, but certain friends you might want to share your inner thoughts and feelings. So that's important. And then we can browse decks. I was showing you that before. We could flick through the different decks that exist. And then here I can select cards, and I literally just flick cards down into the selector below. And now I've got the cards and I can arrange them, and I can literally play with them on my phone and pinch and zoom. I'm gonna demonstrate that after I've gone through this, so you'll see it for real. I didn't want to just pre-can everything, but super fun. And then I know we had a question about do we support hexagonal decks? Well, we support hexagons. We support transparency, so we can support circles, we can support photo objects. So here's an example of a hex deck, and you can literally size and organize the cards and rotate them any which way you want. So super simple and playful to combine those cards in that way. And if I wanted to, I can do the same with circles. And you just literally touch, move, rotate, zoom, etc. So then you can share that, reflect on it. And we actually have some, I haven't loaded in yet, but we just got our first circular. We actually have a hexagon deck that's from someone that is in the process of loading it right now. And I've just got the artwork for someone's circular deck, a circular tarot deck called Pixie, which is amazing. So that's exciting. And then we also support photo objects. So you can literally create cards that are transparent objects, and then you can pinch and zoom and size those cards and stack them over the top of each other, just like that. So it's fun, tactile, it's engaging, it's simple, and it's universal with all of the different cards that are in Deckible. So I don't know if everyone follows the whole tarot space, but tarot is really all about spreads, and a spread is just a collection of 1 to n questions structured into a visual layout. So in Deckible, we can let you create any number of spreads that you want for each deck, and each spread is just a number of cards with a question and description attached to each card. So here's 4 spreads: a single card spread, I've got a yes/no spread, a Celtic cross spread, and a zodiac spread. There's just thousands of unique spreads available. And each of them, to the tarot world, tarot and oracle world, it makes a lot of sense, but to coaches, this is actually a really good way of structuring the questions and adding process. So when I've shown this to coaches, they've got very excited about it, because it basically lets them package up knowledge and insight in how to solve a problem using their deck. So here I've picked my deck, I've picked my yes/no spread, I've chosen my 2 cards, and for that, and now I can explore and see which card is there and read all that information and examine my reading. And obviously I can share my reading, but most importantly, it saves my reading back to my timeline, right? So it's there forever. I'm never going to lose a reading again, and it looks beautiful. So here's an example of a tarot deck called the Tarot Restless, and they've Winslow, the creator of this deck, has created his own spread called the inimical reading, and that's a 12-card spread. And we just literally created this 12-card spread layout in Deckible. It took me 10 minutes, and you can then attach the description and the name question for each of those cards in that spread, and then there it is, right? And then you see that in the app and can process it. And then the last piece of kind of
Nick,
yeah.
I don't know if you're looking at the chat, but before we move away from spreads, Corrado just asked a question. I think what he's asking is if you can make your own custom spreads.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Each deck can have its own custom spreads and as many spreads as you want. Sorry, I had the chat hidden behind.
Does that answer your question, Corrado?
Absolutely, yes.
Good.
Thank you.
Excited yet?
Yeah, so if anyone's got any questions, I'm more than happy to pause and just shout out, because I wasn't, thanks for pointing that out. I wasn't following the chat because I was engrossed in my stuff, I guess. So the last piece of like the feature set of Deckible is really reminders and alerts, because this is about creating healthy habits. And you don't have to use it this way, but we believe that's what a lot of people will do, is because mindfulness, meditation, journaling is about turning up every day and setting your intentions, reaffirming your, manifesting your vision, thinking about the things you want, being creative, all that stuff. And we can really like use the phone as the calling to action to remind you to do the things you said you wanted to do, right? So, and it's just a little story here about Katie, who I met like 2 years ago now. And I met Katie before I was sort of beginning to build this, but it was far away from what this is now. And Katie had a deck of Amico cards. And I kind of kept chatting to Katie over the last couple of years and become pretty good friends. And basically through some of those conversations, we kind of helped Katie realize that she can sell her deck to the enterprise, because she was previously just selling it to each individual person one by one. And she sold 2,500 units of one deck to one client. They also funded giving away some units to the Red Cross because they did an Afghan translation of the deck, and they've been giving those away to refugees in the UK. And that one client who funded that is now in active conversations about potentially getting this is a 30,000 employee organization. And they're in active conversations about getting 15,000 copies of Deckible, because they can give a mental wellness offering to every one of their employees for a ridiculously low cost compared to many kind of HR projects. So I just share this because I remember I was chatting to Katie and I was telling her about some of the challenges I was facing and how it's, hard to convince people of this, that, and the other. She said, "Oh, you should tell my story." And I was like, it's true, right? So anyway, this is Katie's story. And it's really interesting to me because card decks, there are so many people who have card decks, and I chat to them and say, how many copies have you sold? And the numbers vary so wildly. Like I can have conversations with people who've sold like 25,000 copies of the deck. There's one person I'm talking to right now who has sold 2 million copies of all her decks over the years, right? So there's a huge variation, but I think if by taking decks digital, we can lower the barriers to entry to create a deck, because you don't have to be faced with the cost of your first print run and getting it all right. You can iterate, and that's really one of the big value propositions for Deckible is this idea of this is not Gutenberg. We don't have to print. We can just go digital. We can iterate. We can update. We can revise each deck as often and as many times as you want, and then if you want to, you can go to print, right? So, so the idea of what Deckible is it really ultimately is a self-serve platform. So you can go to Deckible, sign up, agree to our terms, conditions, which I can explain what they are. You can create your deck. You can upload the box art. You can upload the shared back if your deck has a shared back, and you don't have to have a shared back, but you can upload different artwork for each side of each card, and you can have 1 to n cards. Each card can have 1 to n sides. We can have audio and video optionally. There's just lots of options, but it's really simple to upload your deck. Like literally, I think the other day I loaded 4 decks in 4 hours for people, right? So it's very simple, and those decks can then be iterated upon, and you can re-upload them and tweak them. I think it's quite funny when I think about guidebooks in the Oracle context. People have this separate guidebook that's different from the deck, right? And so you do your reading, and then you find a card, and you have to go look it up in the book. Well, we don't have to do that with Deckible. We just flip to the 3rd side of the card, and there's the guidebook, right? So it's super simple. We can integrate, we can have extra explainer cards. You can have cards that have the rules to your game, because you could say, here's my cards, and here's 10 games you can play with these cards. And those can be extra cards that you can just exclude when you shuffle. So we basically have created a medium that lets you upload as many cards as you want with as many sides, hiding explainer cards. Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you. Is that better? I think. Kat, does that fix? Apparently just a minute.
Yeah, it fixes the problem I was having.
Is that better? Yeah, cool. I can now see the chat and see the faces and see the slides. Hopefully you all can do that too. Sorry. So basically, yeah, we have one-to-end cards, one-to-end sides per card. So you can flip as often as you want, audio, video. You can specify the border color. You can tag cards, so you can filter quickly through different cards. You can upload PNGs, JPEGs, or GIFs. We just need the artwork to be 1,000 pixels or larger, and any aspect ratio. So you can have square, rectagonal, portrait, landscape, whatever you want. And I think I've covered all of that. And here's an example of a tarot card. This is a 3-sided card. So there's the shared back, there's the front of the card, and then there's the explanation of the card, right? So you didn't need to go to a separate guidebook. It was just flip, 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 and there we are. And then just really to give you a bit of background on me and the project. So previously I've created software startup, software projects. So I sold my Set Analyzer product to Business Objects. I published my board game Gift Trap that sold 100,000 units and won a Builders Yara Prize. And I was co-founder of a startup called Listly, which is still running today in the digital media space. It's basically crowdsourced lists. And it's in the top 5K websites globally based on rankings from Alexa.com. And it's got something approaching 1 million users. So I've got a lot of experience to pull this together. And I know, when I think about Deckible, I get very excited because I kind of think all of this skill set pulls into what Deckible could be. And then really, we launched by the end of May. I'm totally looking for, we're going to launch with over 100 creators. We're well on our way to that. We're ready to upload decks. We're loading decks every day right now. We're well on the way to that. I think once we launch with 100 creators, it's going to be really easy to get the next 200. We'll reach 500, 1,000 decks, because right now we're launching it when the product doesn't exist. And that's like, once it exists, people can see what it is and buy decks and go, oh, I should be on here too, right? So, and basically we're just going to use the kind of viral collaborative nature of the audience. And, by the time we bring on the 1,000th deck creator, they bring their audience to the platform with maybe their 10,000 fans, and each one of those people own that person's deck, but there's 999 other creators whose decks they don't own. And I think that's just fun and interesting and exciting to create a community of deck owners and people passionate about decks. So yeah, that's I can jump in now and demo stuff for sure. That was definitely my plan, but I thought if we pause for a little kind of Q&A, if anyone has any questions, then I can answer those questions, and then I'll go into an actual demo of the product where it's up to for real, as opposed to just showing you slideware and showing. I mean, I've shown you videos of it, but I can jump in and do that more iteratively. So we have a question from Corrado.
Yeah, one second. Thanks for sharing this. I think I have the same question that Kat posed. However, what are the costs for the creators? Because you described the fee.
Absolutely. So basically, you set the price for the deck as the creator, right? And then typically 15% of that goes to Apple and Google, because you're buying the decks through the app stores and in-app purchase. Deckible is free. So we make money when you make money, and we do a 50-50 revenue share on that. So that literally means you make 42.5% of the list price, the selling price of your deck. We don't currently, and if anyone who's on board at the time of launch, we will guarantee to keep no listing fees, no monthly fees. There are no charges to bring your deck to Deckible, right? In time, we might change that, because there's so many unknowns about what our model is, but we're just starting with this. And the first creators on board with the platform, we will grandfather in with that 0 rate forever. So we may change that for others over time, but that's kind of where we are. So we really kind of think of it as like, we use Audible as our benchmark. What would Audible do, right? We have enough innovation in what we've done in Deckible that's what Deckible does. And for the rest of it, we're just going to mirror what we understand that Audible does as a business model. I don't know if that answers that question.
Absolutely, yes. But I have another question. Sorry to monopolize.
It's all right.
Okay, I am a game creator, not a card and not a deck creator. So do you think that we can use the platform for games like, I don't know, card games or what else, where there are multiple players or what else? How can we use this?
You can. We currently, okay. So the way Deckible is structured is there's Deckible.com, which is where you go to upload the artwork, right? And the app is separate from that, but technically there's a thing called an API. The app talks to Deckible.com. All of the data resides back on Deckible.com. All of your journaling, card locations, all of that stuff is synchronized. We absolutely expect to have a full desktop version in time. And the desktop experience would be the multiple collaborative experience. You can individually share cards with people right now. And when I share the cards with you, I could do a card sort, pick my 10 cards and share them with you. You get those cards and you can literally move them around yourself and see my journal entry if I shared it with you and share that back with me. We see that growing over time. I'm not quite sure if we're not trying to be a gaming platform in the sense we're not trying to enforce rules, but we have all the content of the card deck, right? So we think that just the playfulness of it, I think people will invent games around it that could be played with Deckible. Definitely the desktop is where I see us heading with kind of multiplayer collaboration.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Kat, does that answer your question?
It answers one of them. I've got a related one. You mentioned having exclusive rights to a card deck earlier. Is that something that comes as one of the criteria, or because obviously other deck platforms may exist? Are you looking for creators to only have them with you, or can they also?
Yes, we are, because quite simply, if you want a platform to grow and be like the Audible for decks or the Spotify of music, there's a lot of effort in terms of recruiting. So we ask for exclusivity for an app like Deckible, nothing else. You want to sell your deck digitally on Gumroad or Etsy, or print duvet covers on Society6 with your card deck on it, fantastic, right? But if we want to create a go-to destination for card decks, it will happen if there's a leader. It won't happen if, oh, 3 of my card decks are over here and 4 of my card decks are over here. Like that ruins the consumer experience. So that's why there's one Audible one, and there's Audible and Spotify, and iTunes, but Spotify really kind of seems to have won the hearts and soul. And there is Apple Books, but I think Audible kind of wins that by a landslide.
So you're saying that creators retain their own IP,
totally,
but
yeah.
in terms of an implementation that's like what you're offering, you don't want them to be going elsewhere.
Yeah, and if you want to create your own deck app for your deck, fantastic, go at it. You're welcome, right? We're not really trying to restrict anyone anyway. We're actually, it's just good marketing strategy to commit to making it successful, right? And if you want to have I'm more than happy to have a healthy debate about that with anyone. I'm very, very open to it. I'm not, it's just having built Listly and took Listly to where I got Listly to, and having done Gift Trap, I've got a lot of kind of experiences of that. I know what's needed, and it is, this will be a thing that tips. There will be a tipping point. There will be a number of decks where Deckible reaches that it then becomes mainstream and mass adopted, and it won't. Yeah.
So Tracy's asked about, will there be an option to buy physical printed decks? I think you mentioned earlier that there'd be a button.
Yeah, we link to your buy page. Maybe you have an Etsy store, or you have your own Shopify store. In time, we totally could, if you wanted to, send your artwork to the printer and print a physical deck from it, right?
Okay.
Because there are APIs that let us do that with various different platforms. I'm not rushing to go there because there's enough core stuff to focus on, but I can see that that's a possibility, and it wouldn't be that hard. It's just, we need momentum. What we need is, before we need that feature, we need 1,000 decks and 1 million users on Deckible.
I have a question about your business model. Not that I'm thinking about doing this, because obviously one puts effort into things, one wants to get paid for it. But do you have a model for people who, for example, want to offer their decks free of charge? Because it sounds like that wouldn't really work for you, because you wouldn't be getting any. Right.
Yeah, we do. It's a little undefined, but basically the way I'll tell you where I've got as far as is, we will sell you coupons.
Right.
And then you can give away the deck for free. We just haven't agreed what that price is, right?
Okay. So that would, yeah. So I kind of imagine it would have to be something like that, because otherwise you're offering your platform for free as well, aren't you? And
yeah, exactly, right.
Really,
so
that's not really sustainable.
Not really. So either we would agree someone a monthly fee for that.
Yeah.
Because it helps us, and ultimately it helps everybody. If someone comes along with a big audience and says, we want to give away 1 million copies of this deck, we're like, okay, that's kind of worth it, right? I mean, like I've mentioned one of our creators has sold 2 million copies of their deck. We just got the green light yesterday, and I can't really say who it is. But this guy has 500,000 followers on Instagram, is very active and engaged, and he's made a documentary, and the documentary has got amazing artwork in it, and we're going to turn that artwork plus quotes into an amazing deck, and we've got the go ahead. So when you can start saying to people, we have this, this is a game of dominoes. It literally, a domino can knock over a domino that's kind of 25% bigger, and we have to just line everything up so that we can knock over bigger and bigger dominoes. And
my puzzling is kicking in now, and I'm trying to guess who it might be. His name's not Adam something, is it?
No. I should write that down and go figure out which Adam is that. Yeah. Rena, question.
Yeah, I did ask this before. Is there a function where you can swipe and give someone a card? Like before, obviously you can Bluetooth, but or even just tap it, just like to be able to, if three of you get together with your phones, and do the let me just like shuffle you this card. That's
exactly. That's a share feature, so you can just take a card and share it with a friend. Right?
Cool.
And we actually think, because one of the categories we had right at the beginning is greeting cards. And we think the digital greeting card apps are a little bit boring. And imagine being able to send people cards from any deck that you bought on Deckible, right? Mm. So we think that's super interesting. And what was I going to say? I had another thought.
And I suppose from a game playing point of view, that's a kind of functionality that you could use, because if you send somebody a card, it will be hidden from everybody else because it will just be on their phone.
Right, right.
So you can literally have that like a card game, can't you?
Right. We also, the other thought, and I just remember what the other thought I had there was, we are contemplating, if we get enough, once we get enough decks, we could actually give everyone a free card a day from a different deck. Mm. Right. And we've also contemplated, and this, whether this is complicated, I can't quite decide, but we could also have people trading cards. So like, oh, I got this free card, and they could swap cards, because that would create community and bonding, and also might be a distraction. It's hard to know, but we have there's a lot of ideas about teaching you how to use the app through sending you cards, right? Because the cards have got content on them. And so we plan to like create some decks that will be free on Deckible, because there will be how to teach you how to use Deckible, and we'll send you a card a day from each of these decks, right? And it appears in your inbox on Deckible, so it's glowing, and then you open it up, and then you learn that piece of information, and then you carry on. So there's all sorts of creative ideas. We just have to make sure that we're actually building, you know, momentum and strategy and support and engagement. So cards, sharing free cards could, yep. Exactly, right, totally. Yeah, right, Kathy, that's what, I mean, that's our thought process, right? As long as we don't end up giving away each card in the deck and suddenly people can get a whole deck for free, that would hurt us and would hurt our creators. We want everyone, like, basically we want our creators to be able to make a living digitally from Deckible. That would be my joyous moment if I can find a creator that said, oh yeah, I'm making a living off Deckible. I'd be like, oh my God, thank you. That is like mission accomplished, right? And there's a lot of artists who spend a lot of money focusing and trying to sell stuff print, but there's more money to be made in digital. And I think there's an NFT angle here somewhere as well, but I don't want to get distracted by the NFT kind of glossiness, because you can make money on NFT if you're famous, I think, but I'm not sure you're going to make so much money on NFT if you're not. And Liesl.
Hi, Nick. I'm sorry I came in a little late. I hope you haven't covered what I'm going to ask. I wanted to ask about medical cards. So there's a lot of there's a kind of like a spectrum, if you like, of cards where there's a lot of you know, the wisdom of Buddha or Tao, etc. But then if you get into more like a medical area, so I'm thinking about autism, I'm thinking about lots of other things where there could actually be a therapeutic element, but there's more of a medical element to them. Have you thought about getting approval for that so that there's no charlatans, or has that been something that's been part of your strategy?
I actually, interesting. I listened to some stuff yesterday about kind of like the scientific proof or the validated nature of therapeutic, you know, using decks for mental wellness. Is it proven, right? And then you've just gone into a deeper thing of like, is the medical advice valid, right? I know we have one deck creator that's is basically, she's a nutritionist for a living. So she actually makes the formulas behind the supplements that people buy on Amazon, right? And she's actually an expert on all of that stuff. And she's been teaching it for a long time. And so she's creating a sleep deck. And she's actually created the deck. She just hasn't actually made it into physical. She has the content, she just hasn't made it look beautiful and put it onto Deckible yet. But basically, that deck's going to have like morning, what to do in the morning, what to do during the day, what to do in the evening, what to do at bedtime. And it's like, and it's got kind of nutritional tips. So it's kind of into that space, but not quite. We just think decks there are too many books that are too long, and books as decks is a thing. And that advice exists as a book, right? Here's an example. Who's heard of Getting Things Done? This is a very famous top-selling book, but it's also a deck, right? And it's more consumable as a deck, more fun as a deck, because we don't necessarily want to read 60,000 words on a topic, which is what happens when you publish a book. But a deck is more fun and consumable and bite-sized and snackable, right? Info snackable.
So I mean, I think it's fascinating, as you know, but I'm just wondering about your brand as Deckible, about how far you would go to perhaps either just leave it completely open so that people can claim that their decks can have whatever effect. I'm obviously going this, you know, you've got your fun, and then you've got your play, and then you've got your utility function perhaps over here. Or do you see that as something where you'll just be kind of open to decks, or do you see you're having any kind of rules or something around that would help protect you as a legitimate source of?
Yeah, we absolutely feel it's our job to protect the quality of decks, right? So it's in our license that we have the ability to reject a deck. Yeah. So if someone just turns up and plagiarizes or puts a pile of junk on a deck and is just trying to, oh, hey, I can make money on Deckible, let me go and put out these decks, right? Yep. So I'm sure Audible, that would be my answer. I'm sure Audible has that policy. Yeah. Right? And we would have that too, and rankings and votes and reviews, but we will also prevent, I haven't got the processes in place now, but I believe it's in our interest to prevent people from even reaching the marketplace with a sub-quality deck, right?
Yeah, because there's an opportunity. I think there's a big opportunity for usefulness and helpfulness in decks from certain medical perspectives, and that's a great opportunity. But there is also that risk. That was my question.
Well, I totally know for a fact that I think the UK is actually ahead in this one. Is you can be prescribed a wellness app from your doctor. And imagine being, the thought of being prescribed Deckible and therapeutically approved decks is pretty interesting to me, right? And workplace decks is interesting because you reach certain volume and scale, right? So enterprise decks, that kind of thing is interesting. So I think, so Corrado, you have your hands up still, I don't know if you were.
Yeah, try to go out of mute. A technical question. Probably, I will check the procedure to upload a deck very soon, I can tell you. But in my decks, for example, I have 100 cards. Is there some way that you can upload, let me say, easily in one shot, maybe with CSV file or something like that?
Oh yeah, that's exactly how it works, literally. We have we have this standard spreadsheet template that is a CS that then has, you know, the name of the card, the description of the card, the artwork file names for that card, and there can be many. We just have a comma separated list, tags for the card, all that stuff. If you like, and if you want to, if you have a deck and you want to upload it right now, you're more than welcome to sign up for Deckible, and we transfer that artwork to me if we want to, and I'll create that spreadsheet for you and send it back to you, and I'll upload the deck into Deckible. Because when you see that spreadsheet filled in with your artwork, you'll go, oh, I get it, that's how I do it. Okay, got it, right? It's the quickest way of learning. Like, if you want to, we have a video from one of our creators that steps you through the whole thing.
Yeah, step-by-step guide. Okay.
You can do it yourself if you want to. I've just realized that more people have techno fear of CSVs than I was aware. So I offer, if you're CSV savvy, go for it. But I'm also here to help. And if you have any questions, you get stuck. And the other thing I cannot say enough is this is not the printing press. This is not Gutenberg. You can revise and revise and revise, right? So load your deck with 3 cards, load different artwork, try that, try this, try that, then load your 100 cards, and then go, oh, now I should change it, reload it, right? That is.
So with that in mind, is there a kind of publish button? So can you kind of preview before you publish?
Yeah. And also you have to submit to publish. So that's where our process of approving, to Lizzle's question, is.
Right. So you can look at it. You can look at what it would look like before that happens.
So once right now, the only people who have access to our beta, we're in beta right now. The only people who have access is people who've uploaded a deck, right? So that's the kind of ticket to entry is to the beta program right now, is to have a deck. And if you have a deck and it's in draft, and if you play with Deckible on your phone, your deck will be on your phone in draft, right?
Right.
So you can actually see the deck and play with it and iterate on the deck before it goes public to everyone else, right? So that's super cool because you actually get to see your draft deck iterated on the phone, and then you can go live with it once you know what, once you're happy with it and we're happy with it, and we set the price and it's live and off we go.
And it sounds like your approval process goes through a real human being, which I'm guessing is you. So how long is the approvals process? Well,
it's pretty quick right now, but that might, I suspect that might slow down in time. But yeah, I mean, yeah, mostly, I mean, right now I tend to know all the creators who are turning up to Deckible, and I have an awareness of their content, and so it's pretty effortless. I'm mindful that in time we'll need to put more rigor into that process, right? And communicate what that is. Yeah, Bizzle.
I was wondering about the deck development process. You've got a lot of expertise, and the people who've uploaded decks and have been through the process of creating decks, the thought behind them, pairing up with graphic designers, etc. Have you thought about how that, or do you see that at the moment maybe as a distraction because you're focused on your core business? But are you thinking in the future about maybe helping provide that sort of pathway to helping people do decks?
Audible, my answer to that is Audible does that, and so therefore we need to do that, right? And I think, there was a bit I think this was, you missed this bit, but there are 20, I've already found 20 different people worldwide who sell courses on creating decks, and those people also offer services. Now, obviously, you can just go to any freelancer and Fiverr and get those skills, or you can, pick someone if you want that's already got skills, right? And we're working more and more, like I'm working with at least four of those 20 people already. And I literally I probably had a pretty much 100% success rate with everyone I've reached out to. I just thought I can't handle all 20 right now. We'll just focus with the four, and they're bringing their clients onto Deckible, right? But it also gives us a means to say, well, here's a person that we can trust and refer, so Lizzle has a question, you have a deck, oh, who would you like? Well, here's 3 people we could recommend, right?
It gives you a sales funnel as well for your...
Totally, no, exactly. So those people are all competent and have a track record in producing decks, and we can connect you with those people, no problem at all. Yeah. Because I'm happy to show the actual app, by the way. I was not avoiding that, but I figured questions was important. But if does anyone want to see the actual live app on the phone?
I do.
I did it. I did it already.
Well, I showed bits of it as I went through the slides.
I signed up for it yesterday.
Yes, I saw. Awesome.
Just want to check in that I...
You did. No, you get cardstock. You get cardstock bonus points as well. Okay. All right. Is there, by the way, I'm going to start demonstrating. Is there anything anyone specifically wants to see in the demonstration, so if I can guide it there? But I'll just I'm going to demonstrate 2 things. I'm going to demonstrate a card sort, which is basically you choose cards and organize them and play with them like that. And then I'm going to demonstrate a spread, which is more of like in the tarot oriented feature set, which is more like coaching and tarot spread. Okay, here we go. You ready? Hats on. Share screen. Here we are. So I'm in Deckible now, and let me just move that out the way. All right. So this is my timeline screen, and I scroll up and down, and from here I can choose and go back to any period in time that I want, right? So I can go back to March and see what I touched in March. I can also filter at any point. I can look for things that card sorts. I could look for when I've meditated, when I've journaled, or spreads that I've done, and it filters the the background behind that, right? So I'm just gonna look at all events. On the 5th, here's an event I did, and I could just zoom in on that. Oh, I shared this with someone. You can see the share button at the bottom. It's got one name at the bottom. And it opens up the share screen. Oh, I shared it with, there we go. There's my contact I shared it with, right? And these cards can be touched and flipped, and I can read the card, the description on the card if I loaded this information. And now that, so even I come back to the screen, the card that's on top is now on top in the timeline screen, right? So here's that silly little, and these can be, you know, yeah. Those are actual single-sided cards, by the way. We support single, so you don't have to have two sides to every card, basically. Okay, so that's the timeline screen, and literally you can scroll left and right on each day, etc. Right? And now I'm going to do a card sort, right? So I'll just pick this deck here. Just loaded the deck for me. There we go. And I can scroll through the cards like this. This is actually a 3-sided deck. So here we go. Side 1, side 2, side 3, side 1, right? So it's really easy to navigate through the deck and get to those cards, right? I'm going to shuffle the deck. So shuffle's done. I come back here, it's now shuffled up, and I can then pick some cards, right? And I put these into my card sorter at the bottom, and I can choose them like this. And now I can just organize these cards any which way I want, right? And I can journal on those, right? Or, oh, hit the wrong button again, just a bit. I'm too lazy to type. It's much more fun to just talk to your phone, right? I mean, journaling's never been this fun or this easy. And I saved that away. It's in my timeline. What did I journal on? I can't remember. Oh, that's what I said, right? I want to share that with Lizzle. I just go share. I don't think you're in my phone book. No, sorry. I can have to add you. Anyway, you get the point.
Nick,
Tracy's just asked,
I could have added you there into my phone book.
Tracy's just asked if you can shuffle the cards without seeing the front of the cards.
Yes, you can. Yes.
Random shuffle.
Yes. But you can, because you can flip them. That deck I showed you had a different face. There are other decks that I could show. Oh, let me pick a different deck, right?
So you can shuffle them face up or face down.
Any face you want. So here's the Amico cards, shuffle, voila.
I see,
right?
Yeah.
So literally, like, and we can also filter. You see I've got 56 cards there right now? See the 56, 22 or 56? I click spades, I've now got 13 spades I can choose from. Right? And I can flip them all over and see them, or I could just choose them blind, right? And now I've got it here, I've chosen that blind, I can flip it over. And if I want to meditate on that card, I could.
That's great. Thank you very much. I'm just thinking for sort of more for tarot cards, because you obviously you don't want to be preempting and choosing the cards.
I'm going to show you the tarot sort right now. So that was the card sort where you can pick one or many cards and organize them, right? And then I do a spread, and now I'm picking a tarot deck, or a deck that has spreads attached to it. So now I'm going to pick this deck, and I can pick a different spread, right? So this is a yes/no spread. It's really simple, but like that's a complicated spread with 13 cards. It works beautifully. You just flick them on the phone. It's just super slick. And you can design those. I designed that. I just literally pinch zoom, rotated all those cards, and you can design that in the same way, right?
So in order to use a spread, you need to be using a deck that has a spread attached to it, or are the spreads built into Deckible?
There are built-in spreads.
Mm-hmm.
And creators can choose to use the built-in spreads or their own custom spreads or no spreads at all. It's up to them.
Okay, but no, that's not quite what I was asking. So
Okay.
if I pick a deck that hasn't got a spread attached to it, I can't use the spread with that deck.
Correct, except you can create a curated deck.
Right, and then I could use the spread with it.
Correct.
Right. Okay, cool.
So because the curated decks are 3 cards from here, 10 cards from here, 5 cards from there, and then you can actually you are the creator of that deck.
I see.
You can't sell that deck. Well, you could, but you'd have to buy the component decks. So that's right.
So I guess I could create a curated deck that just contains all the cards from a deck.
Correct.
And then use whatever spread I liked with it.
Yeah, you're like basically just cloning the deck at that point.
Okay.
And then using
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's very it's like I'm very happy with the way all of that flexibility and power is lined up, because it just means the answer to just about every one of these questions is yes, right?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
So here I go. Literally, I just drag the cards in. Oh, I don't want that card. I want that card, right? And I reveal, and I click on each card in turn. Oh, what's the detail behind that card? And you see, this is no. This is no is the question, because it was the yes/no spread. This is more about no is the description of that spread. And then below, restrict interference is the description of that card, right? So it's pulling all of that information. If I want to look at the card in detail, there it is. I can read the description. If this card is not, I can flip it. There's the back of the card and the front of the card, right? But if there were more sides, if this had a guidebook integrated, it would be there too, right? And there it is, right? I open it back up, it's saved my spread, it knows it's a spread, and voila. So that, I don't know, how did that, does anyone need to see anything that I didn't show there?
I'm sure I can ask questions as I use it or start to download it, but here's my thing. I'm going to try and experiment with it. If it's possible, for September with my students.
Oh yes, please.
Because
I was going to suggest that to you.
Because like it's just really just throwing more toys in the box of like how to engage them, because they're always on their phone, and I do give them the whole PowerPoint slides, right? Lots of details. Right. So what I could do is, what I'm trying to do in the next few months is figure out some sort of symbolic toolkit so that each week they go through a core set, which is of critical thinking, of like, what's the evidence, what are other angles, the whole frames of reference we were talking about. And then I would then release like a bunch of thematic cards or, to do with that one, right? So that then they'll have a kind of summarized card deck per week of the themes. And then they can refer to the PowerPoint presentations with more detail, but it's just then as a means to either engage with them or say, like, I want you to talk about one thing from last week. What's the card deck? And then you can, flick it up. So that's the plan, maybe.
Yeah,
so that it'd be more interactive.
I remember you saying about wanting an onboarding deck for students into the. You talked about onboarding. The
course, yeah.
And that would make a perfect deck, right? Oh.
Mm-hmm. So that is what I'm working on. I think, yeah. I'll let you know.
Let it be hexagon.
Well, yeah. So I was just trying to figure out whether hexagon or even a combination of having a hexagons as core, and then having the triangles like expand like a flower or something.
By the way, each deck does not have to be all the same shape.
Sweet. I like it. Yeah. So then you can shuffle.
Anyway, aside from that, even if that was the case, which it isn't, you could create a curated deck that combine them. So it's designed to expect every card to be a different aspect ratio, right?
Okay.
It's pretty flexible and fun in that way.
So I've got a couple of questions to ask now based on what Rena's just been saying, because I'm now thinking about the implementation of decks within a classroom situation.
Right.
So my first question is, can you take what you've got on your phone and kind of send it to a larger screen? So could you sort of go, this is what I'm doing, and put it on a screen in front of a classroom?
All I did here was I've got my phone attached to my Mac and I projected it.
Okay.
So this works on a tablet, it works on an Android as well. Like if I had my tablet, you would see tablet shaped information on the screen.
Okay.
So yeah, totally easy to do.
So you can actually get a sort of wider screen aspect then. Yeah.
Oh
okay.
yeah.
And my second question, which relates to kind of the sharing of cards. So in this case, the sharing of cards with students in a classroom, for example. You own, if you've purchased the card deck, I can see that you own that card deck and you can use that card deck, but how does that work in terms of sharing those cards?
So sharing works in the sense that when you share with me, all you're sharing is a pre-arranged set of cards you pre-selected. So if you have if it's shared with you, you can interact with that shared experience, but you cannot create a new experience with the deck.
Okay, so there's no kind of problem with the students not owning the deck?
No.
No.
Now, I have had conversations with creators who have voiced concerns about the number of cards that should be shareable. And so that is very likely going to become a parameter that a creator can choose. How many of my cards can be shared in one go, right? Yeah. Because it's a valid concern. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with it. And if the creator has a concern, it's my concern, right? Because I don't want unhappy creators. So, but if the creator of the deck doesn't specify a limit, I mean, I think also it's ungainly to share 52 cards in a 52 card deck, you know, somehow it doesn't feel quite right. But I don't have an instant answer to what the right number of sharing would be. But
I'm just thinking of a situation where you have like the curriculum basically held in a card deck. You would want to share all of those cards with the students, wouldn't you?
Right. But if it's a curriculum, why wouldn't we have given you coupons to give out that deck to everyone, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's.
I'm just trying to work out how the whole business model works with regard to that.
Well, right now we're in play zone, so we can do things that are fun and challenging. And you want 50 copies of your deck to test with your students? I'm going to say sure.
Yeah.
You know, like we're basically my thinking of this is here it is, right? I want to see what people do with it, and I've created this in a very specific way that's like do lots of things with it. And probably people are going to bump into walls and frustrations and frictions, and great. Okay, so then we'll listen and we'll fix the ones that seem the most obvious to fix first and second and third. But this is creative, and I just think decks are so this feels tactile to me, like, and the word tactile to me means I got to touch it. And you get the cards on here and you have to touch, you've got people. When your students are touching, or when you are touching the cards, you are in the moment with the creator and the question on that card. You're not thinking about your gas bill or the time you've got to be somewhere next. You're in the moment. And in that sense, I think that's a major achievement, because we've achieved some element of mindfulness and focus that is hard to do in a infinite scrolling kind of Instagram, Facebook world. That's my belief, and I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm very happy and open to debate it. I know a lot of people have gone, oh, you know, I love the tactile nature of my deck. I don't want to go digital. Well, try this, right?
It's just funny because it's in my hand, so I think it will have that simulation.
Yeah,
right, because I can feel it. I can feel a weight, and then if there's kind of an image, so
well, also you can't pinch and zoom a real deck. It's, you know, they don't stretch when you touch them, paper, right? Whereas because you can prioritize and pinch and zoom, and it's fun to, in my opinion, I'm not saying that I'm right, but it seems tactile to me, right? And that to me was a big design goal. And when I looked at the stills of the mock-ups, it felt that way. But as we actually got to build the app and I have the app in my hand, it feels tactile. I'm like, that's exciting to me. Like, I think that feeling is being created. But that's my opinion. We'll see. The market will tell us, right? And I'm not saying we're right in any way, shape or form. I just feel we're heading in the right direction. It's like, to use a Canadian expression, we're where the puck is heading, right? And we can tweak and adjust as we go. But I think the, when can we download again?
When is it live? We're gonna have it.
When can you have it? You have to load a deck.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So am I answering all the questions? I wasn't really reading the.
I'm keeping an eye on them. I don't think there's anything recent that you've had to answer as such, apart from when can we download.
Oh, someone said dice. Oh, I've got to say dice. I want to have dice to roll a deck. I've got the mock-ups for it. It's in the plan. Because basically, you know, say you've got a 52 card deck. To roll it, you just simply choose how many dice do you want, and it will then pick 6 cards per dice from the deck, give you physical dice on the computer and on the phone, it will roll them, right? Who's heard of the Metaphoric Dice app? Rena, I'm sure. Yeah, because I think I found it from you. Hard stuff. The Metaphoric Dice app is very cute, right? But to me, I'm frustrated because I want that to do that with all these cards, right? So rolling cards in a deck is super fun. It's just a cool way to get 6 of something to pick 1 of something. Anyway, there's my little dice ramble.
Proper dice have 20 sides anyway.
Digitally, you can. I don't know how you construct a 20. I can imagine doing a 6-sided dice, but you can just literally.
I have a special affection for 20-sided dice because I love Dungeons and Dragons so much.
There's probably a term for that. Must be. If not, we should invent one.
Yeah. Cool. Has anybody got any more questions or anything they want to add? Does they want to share their excitement about what this has sort of made them think about?
Oh, I have a question.
Cool.
My question is, do you know if who should have been on this call that isn't, or who needs to know about Deckible that you have in your network? Because that's like, we've got a long way with Deckible because of referrals, and yeah, if you know anyone that owns a deck that should be on the platform, I would really value an introduction, because this is I think the more mass and momentum we can create around it, the more people will get it. So
I think Kat is definitely keen to have a chat with you afterwards.
Okay.
I have a question, which is, Nick, how much money are you going to cost me I'm budgeting for the next quarter. How much money are you going to cost me again with this? Because you do have a habit of introducing me to rather lovely decks in the physical form and now in the digital form too. So I'm just budgeting it, and that's all I want to know.
I think I could pose that differently and say, I'm actually going to save you money.
Really?
Because then you'll buy a physical deck too, so I'm going to cost you money. How many decks have you bought? Did the Beautiful Trouble deck arrive?
We had a problem with postage. It's coming, and we're in. Cool. But thank you. We're getting there. We're getting.
Will there be a special buy all button? I think we need to do that. I think in time, we can't do this now, but in time we may have a like a subscription membership fee. But that, I don't know, that it's appealing, but then it messes up because I feel creators get like cut out of that. I think Spotify is an unfair model for the creator, quite honestly. Not if you're a rock star, but if you're tiny. So I don't know. Well, we will. Okay, so my best answer to the buy all button is we will have deck of the day, right, for a special price, as long as the creator doesn't opt out of that, which they can. We will have 2-for-1 sales. We will do a bundle on Kickstarter of 20 decks for $20, because it's not about the money you make, it's about the 20,000 new people you bring to Deckible from Kickstarter, right? So my background is steeped in crowdsourcing with my board game and with Listly. I fully get that, and I'm very excited by what this brings and how we can help creators. And I think there's just so much cool art and greeting cards. It doesn't have to just be decks, right?
You're going to have merch?
I know where you're going with that, Christian. I can see that. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Thanks,
well,
Nick.
Brilliant.
Excited.
Yeah, I'm very
Good to
excited
go.
too. I'm sort of like sitting here, and in my typical ADD way, I've got about 14 ideas going on now about things that I could use Deckible for, and yeah, I'll have to prioritize them.
Thank you. No, this is, I'm excited. This has been such a long journey for me, and it's been so exciting because I literally spent 3 years building something that I threw away to build this. But I view that as a gift, not a, I spent 3 years finding this to build, right? And I wouldn't have, if I hadn't started down that path, I wouldn't have found this. And now, like, even getting people to join the platform has been, I'm an eternal optimist, and I just said instantly, my instant goal was I need 100 creators on this platform to get it going. I didn't think it would be that hard. It's been phenomenally hard, but that's why no one else has done it, right? And we're gonna blast through that number. I know it, and I know, feel that it just feels right. I keep getting, I come off phone calls with people, and they're so like they're literally bouncing around the Zoom screen with excitement. And some of those people then don't do anything, and it's nothing personal. They're just, some people are just not early adopters. Some people need to see the app physically launched in the App Store, and then they'll jump on board, right? And I've learned a lot in that process, and I don't take any of these things personally. It's just like, keep going, keep nudging, keep looping back with people, keep showing them something else, keep showing them it's moving, it is moving, it's here, look, right? And it's fun. This to me is like a game. It's a wonderful, joyous game, bringing this to life, right? And it's very satisfying to play with it, to see with it, the other night I had a very geeky, nerdy evening and uploaded 4 decks, and I was like, yeah. It's like the strangest thing to get excited about, but it was really joyous because the artwork is amazing and it's very, very motivating. So I really appreciate
can I share the two things?
Yeah.
Can I share the 2 things that have come to me while we've been having this call? Just because I like to share things. So do you remember we were having a conversation in Cardstock about 1,000 blank white cards?
Oh yeah.
So I won't go into it now. For those of you that don't know what 1,000 blank white cards is, you can look it up on Wikipedia. There's a very good description. But basically, one of the outputs from 1,000 blank white cards is something that's it comes out of part of the game called the epilogue, and it's a kind of stockpile of cards that move from one game to another. And from what you said about sort of like being able to iterate and change your designs and so on and so forth, Deckible would be an ideal place to keep your stockpile,
right.
And share it with people and bring them into your particular game that you're playing.
We do plan, we're going to allow people to draw on cards.
That would be even better.
So it was in the original plans. I've built mock-ups of it. I've had it working in my original thing that I threw away 3 years, the 3 years work. You can doodle on this stuff, and it's because coloring is meditation. That was my primary driver for it, but actually drawing is coaching. And so I get one feature set. I satisfy both the meditating mindful folk and the facilitator coaching, Welsh kind of cardstock crowd, right? It's like, I'm super excited to do that. That and dice are my 2. And those are so easy and obvious to fit on top of Deckible, right? With the infrastructure we've got there. It's pretty powerful. Like, I don't know. Yeah. And seeing your scribbling in your timeline, it's kind of moving, right? To me, especially when I look at the stuff that I see scribbled on the cardstock cards, right? they're pretty cool. I love that. I love seeing that, and yeah, lots of options. Lots. Oh, mandala cards. Yes, please. And what's that? There's a word for it, but there's hand gestures. Well, we're on mandalas. There's a word for the hand poses, and there's a deck for those.
Mudras.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I want a mudra deck. I want a mudra deck. Yes, please.
So Kat's got another question about can you have a joint session with others?
You can share cards back and forth. We don't currently have a desktop version for collaboration, but we plan to, because it's easy, because of the way the infrastructure is built. We have all the data to support that, right? So we can build a desktop experience that lets you manipulate and bring people and collaborate with, you know, many people in a session. And it gets a bit like what's that other app? Oh my God, what's it called? I can't think of it. There's that. It's like a whiteboarding app, but it's can't think of the name of it.
Miro.
What was that?
Miro.
Miro, that's the, yeah, thank you. Yes, Miro, right? Miro is great, but it's also just chaotic. I just delete the card off Miro and it's gone. It's like, oh, didn't mean to do that. Deckible has a little more structure to it and a little more collaboration and a little more data behind it, I think, than Miro. Miro is more like just a random freeform drawing tool. So we don't do that yet, but if we build a desktop version, that's what my thought process is. Yeah, Miro is total freedom, right? It's and I think kind of there's elements of a built into this because Miro is like that, but doesn't have the data. But we're not there yet, so one step at a time. But I love what Miro does. It's very cool. But I just think that scribbling on cards and collaborating with others makes sense. But we very specifically started from mobile first. Build a mobile app because there are more consumers than coaches, and that's the bigger opportunity. And in my opinion, but also the desktop and enterprise is where the money is too. So.
I think Paul's idea, remote design thinking sessions. Sounds really interesting.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of ideas, a lot of cool stuff to be discussed and thought about.
And you're actively looking for people to become sort of like your starter creators at the moment, aren't you, Nick? So we should all go away and cogitate and incubate these ideas a little further.
Yeah, like everyone I've found a lot of people I've spoken to. Like I have one amazing situation where I reached out to this guy because he had a Kickstarter. He loaded his deck. He got so excited. He introduced me to the next person. 5 people in a row. That doesn't happen in real life. Like people do not refer like that. And I'm sitting on that and I'm like, wow, I know this is very special. And the engagement, the reaction, but still, it doesn't matter how special it is. If I reach out to somebody that doesn't know me and tell them this is special, they just go, because saying special doesn't mean anything because we constantly get bombarded by, you know, overzealous claims in our inbox, right? So you need to hear, hey, Mary, this thing.
Quite often about parts of your body that you don't actually own.
Yeah. So I fully appreciate that and expect that, but I know that, you know, it's belief, effort, momentum, turning up every day, keeping just mindfully persistent and just belief, keep going. And I know that's kind of where we've got to with this. So I feel super proud of this moment and to have got this far and to be sitting where it is, and I'm excited what's ahead, but it's also like thanks, Kat. Yeah, anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, if I'm not connected, more than happy to send accept. I'm a super open connector, Yeah, thank you very much for today. I really didn't. I was like, when we talked about having an hour and a half lined up for this, I was like, oh, I don't know how we'll consume that time, but we've flown through it with ease. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for coming. I think people are dropping off a bit now, so we probably should draw it to a close. But I mean, is there anything anything you need to share with us before you go? Any important bits of information, such as where to go to find it?
Literally, if you want to get started on Deckible, I think on the last slide there I had of it, go to deckible.com/start, and it gives you where to create an account, the steps and process for uploading. Our onboarding is not very slick right now; it's non-existent. So reach out to me. I'm here to help. I'm more than happy if you've got artwork for a deck. I'll help you through the process and do that. This stuff doesn't scale thing, because that's how you get there, right? So we're doing all that stuff to get people on board.
And is it accessible as an end user at the moment, or?
Well, not really, but it doesn't do you any harm. It's just there's nowhere to go, right?
Right.
You can sign up and create an account, and that will be the account that will be usable inside Deckible app when it launches.
When it launches.
If you go to deckible.com, it just asks you to create an account and agree to our terms, and then you can create a deck. So it's very, and it's on my list of like, I need to make that so that you can arrive at deckible.com and be comfortable just being a consumer. I need to ask you that question: are you a creator? And that's been on my list for like it's become top of my list for the last week, and I have not got to it because all the things are going on, but I'm going to fix that.
I looked at it yesterday, and as a user, although I've now got some deck ideas, they're eventually coming. You've got me, but as a user, and I was wondering how, and I know you'll have this sorted, but what's my experience in order to see the decks? How much of the decks can I see before I decide that I want to purchase? And that's the thing I'm curious about. And I know you'll have your UX designed and everything, but I'm looking forward to seeing what that is, because I'm a sucker for decks.
Well, and also, like, honestly, we're at this phase with the beta of the app right now, and so the creators can join that. There is release 1 is where it is, and release 2, the release 1 does not include the fully finished marketplace, right? So
what I'm hearing now is you can actually get to the app if you're a creator. So that's kind of like
if you have a deck, and it's you can ask nicely and come in. It's okay. I'm not being horrid about it, but you can also create a deck with 3 cards and then you'll be in, right? So yeah, I'm sure we can brainstorm a deck that will there you
go, Lee. So that's your way in.
Thank you. I saw some, I just really wanted immediately, I was immediately grabbed, and I wanted to look at them and think, okay, I want to see what is in these, what's behind these, so that I could explore what I might want, what I might need, what I would be attracted to. So I'm super excited.
Yeah. So as a user, in total honesty and transparency, that experience is not the best right now, because we've focused on the card consumption experience. It's not that over the next 8 weeks, we're going to focus on finishing off the marketplace and how to buy the deck that you've just received shared from a friend. But hey, if you're on board with using it, all your feedback, totally valuable. Be honest, like true. Don't worry about.
I will. Don't worry. I'm excited.
No, I know. I don't even need to say that to you, but I won't be offended. And please be honest. I care about, like, I'm steering the ship and trying to, like, not take on too much. So some stuff I have to say no to, but I do take on board the feedback really, really seriously. So thank you. This has been wonderful, everyone. Thank you for.
Well done, you.
Yeah, absolutely. Told you an hour and a half wouldn't be too long.
Thanks, Sarah, for organising, facilitating.
No, that's absolutely fine. It's very exciting, and it's got lots of ideas going on in my head now. So, which I'm going to have to go and have a think of.
I couldn't imagine talking for an hour and 3/4 this morning, but I did it.
Well, it was really fun, and really exciting, and yeah, thank you very much. And
yes, thanks, Paul. Yeah. Thanks, Sarah.
That's okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Hope to speak to you all soon and see your decks on Deckible, possibly.
Thank you.